What is up, DTube, Steam blockchain? So today I'm gonna talk a little bit about memory because I looked something up and it was really fascinating for me. So I had this old phone. Actually, it wasn't even my phone, but I sort of saw it, and it was a Sony Ericsson W955 or 995. I think 955. And this phone is a phone from 2009, 10 years ago. And I have the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. And this is kind of fascinating for me. Because if you look at the storage capacity, the 955, the Sony Ericsson phone, has 118 megabytes internal storage. My Galaxy Note 10 Plus has 256 gigabytes, or in other words, 256,000 megabytes. That is a 2169x, a 2000x increase in memory in 10 years. And it's really interesting to sort of look at this because especially when you talk about let's say money, especially when you talk about money now in let's say a global age, and as I talked about a little bit in the past, how money now mainly is sort of memory, and we're seeing that with sort of digital tokens. And okay, so we have a 2000x increase in memory in around 10 years. Okay, 2009 Bitcoin, let's say it was around $1 or $2 or something like that. If we add on 2000x, we get pretty similar like growth curve in price of Bitcoin as the memory increase. That would be around $2,000, maybe $4,000. So maybe it's not really about price. Like, people usually are focused just on the price aspect, but what if it's more about memory? That memory is just growing, and that these other industries, such as money, which is mainly now digital, that it benefits from this memory increase, and that money sort of becomes memory now because it's in a computer. It's not really so much in the physical world anymore, or at least, yeah, there is still a lot physical money, but it's moving there to more the digital sphere. So it's very interesting how how phones have increased 2000x in storage capacity in 10 years. And why would this stop? The next 10 years, we're probably going to see something similar again, or maybe even a speed up. And people saying, well, I don't need that much storage. Well, it's going to happen either way. And people are going to see the benefit of it eventually. For example, now you can upload 4 gigabytes of 4K vlogs on YouTube. And it actually gives more value to the end consumer and for everyone, basically. Because you can transact data much faster. So 2000x is it's just fascinating how and most people cannot really see that. They cannot really see that benefit at the moment. So for example, at the moment they really focus on price, but as we've seen with price in these industries, it's really going like exponentially and then slow many years, and it seems like nothing is really happening in this industry because it goes 100x and then slow for 3 or 4 years. And that's kind of how we have seen almost with like smartphones, or so first we get an amazing smartphone, then a couple of years of sort of slowdown, and it looks like nothing is really happening, and that eventually seems like it's only going to be a topic of memory, and that when everyone sort of has memory, they probably like there's not really going to be that much need to like compete in that sphere. Like, oh, I have more memory than you. Will people eventually care that much about it, or will it just be, it's like, do you care if your friend has 1 terabyte and you have 256 gigabyte storage? It's like eventually it becomes like a non-thing. But at the moment, most people do not have that much memory. Like, they're still running on older hardware, older smartphones, older technology, so they can't really feel the benefit at the moment. It's the same as, even if you have a high-end smartphone for 2019, Galaxy S10 Plus and Note 10 Plus, you're gonna feel a bigger reward from having that device when more people are having those same devices, when more people are on high-end smartphones. Because when other people are on older devices, their load time, like for them to load stuff, and maybe they're on slow internet connection, less data and memory, they cannot really feel so much of the reward, and then you can also not feel the reward. So it's like everyone benefits when more people have more memory. And I mean that's the same thing with the money topic, that it can kind of be nice here when people are not so stuck in the label of money eventually, and when they more start to look at it as memory, and that a lot of it now is just a accumulation phase of more memory. And as I talked about a little bit in the past, the dematerialized aspect, how fascinating it is to sort of observe. So eventually you're probably not going to need that much memory, because we're just going to have a big box that just can do everything from the cloud. Like in theory you can already do it right now. The problem is the infrastructure is sort of lacking. It's not really out there. So people have to do a lot of manual tasks, and it's so much like petty stuff. For example, hey, if you want to transfer some file between a Samsung phone and an Apple phone, or maybe a computer, like maybe you have to like pay for it, some app on the Mac or something like that. It's like, it's super much like small petty stuff, which really it shouldn't really be needed, right? So people are being very petty, and many people, I mean, it's kind of hard to access new devices and so on, because it is really expensive, like 50% tax, and if you have to pay it with your own money, centralized bank account and all this, it's like there is a lot of hassle. And you may not see the incentive that much, because most people at the moment have it sort of in their head that their devices are not really making them any value. But next 10 years now, when devices are going to start to make a lot of people like passive value, they're going to see the benefit of having new tech, the latest tech, the best tech. And that's going to be kind of cool to sort of observe. So yeah, that is a little bit what I sort of wanted to talk a little bit about. And yeah, it's just kind of cool to sort of consider these topics a little bit more in depth, because most people cannot really experience it until they sort of have the memory, and have the proper sort of eventually decentralized apps, which eventually should probably be here when a lot of the petty nonsense, when when you have enough developers and when you have enough eventually buy-in of value, so you need a lot of value flows that sort of moves into these new industries. And just because we have this disaster year 2017 with a lot of these scam projects, a lot of people are super skeptical at the moment of this sort of industry, and it sort of makes sense, right? Because it's so long term, so people are sort of starting to realize that it's not really like people trying to generate like a FOMO run, shale people, but I think more and more people are starting to realize that it's such a long term thing that it doesn't really matter when a person gets in. Like, sure, it does matter if you want to like super much memory, but eventually you're probably going to be able to get memory either way. If we're going to have some artificial intelligence machine that can do this a million times faster than us, it's like, then what's the point for you to try to do it better than a machine? I mean, clearly a machine will be able to gather memory way quicker than a human being eventually, and human won't be able to compete with that. And that's going to be kind of like a relief eventually for humans, that they don't have to obsess so much about memory as they have to do right now. So yeah, memory is going to increase, and people are going to have more memory, and it's going to simplify a lot of things. Have a great day, DTube and Steam blockchain.